Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another rules speed through. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at Rome, Fate of an Empire. I'm going to teach you how to play this game. It is only a solo game, so you're going to get the whole experience right here. Hopefully, after watching this video, it will refresh your memory on the rules you've already learned or help you to see how the game all plays out, just kind of in getting you in tune with the way the rules really are. So let's get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much for that support. I really appreciate it. So this game is a game with tons of things that you can do, lots of stuff to explore. But the whole point of the game is that you are trying to accomplish a certain number of edicts. And depending on the difficulty level, you will choose a set of edicts to implement, and then you have to complete them, plus you have to achieve the score that it's required. So you're going to remember, you're going to go to this area here and you're going to decide if you're going to play a 3-round game or a 4-round game. If you play a 3-round game, you will use the edicts that have the empty hourglass. If you play the full 4-round, you'll use the ones with the full hourglass. And then the specifics about how much you have to do, etc., is all based on the difficulty you choose. You're also going to set out this 5x5 grid. Of course, this is near the end of the game, so I'm just showing this fully set up for teaching purposes. But these territories are going to be undeveloped, and you can develop them throughout the game. And this should have been over here, as a matter of fact. You can develop them throughout the game. And by the way, when you develop, and I missed this rule my first playthrough or so, is that they have to be at least touching another development or touching your capital. So you have to develop from that area. You can't just build over here and build over here, kind of like I have that in that spot right there. They have to be developed from the capital. So you're also going to have a hand of cards over here, and I'm going to zoom in on some of these things after I do the overview. You have your leader sheet. Your leader sheet is going to start with all the cubes farthest to the left. You will gain in these categories by building developments. Each of the developments will have some type, or most of them, I think, will have some type of bonus that you get to your bonus sheet when you build it. And when you build it, you have to pay that cost, which we'll go into a little bit. And then that will increase your capabilities as a leader. Okay, so set up the game as it says in the book. And then you win the game by accomplishing all of the edicts. You lose the game if you don't accomplish all the edicts, or at any point in the game, you run out of loans or strifes to draw. If these go to 0, either or, then you will lose. Now, the way the game is played is on your turn, you are going to first do this active project phase. You're going to pay a gold or take a strife for every project that you have set aside, not in your hand, that you have not built yet. Then you will check any of your agreements. If you have agreements that are the long-standing ones, most of those you will go ahead and gain some type of resource of your choice. There are a couple of shorter agreements where you might gain these ones right here. This would say like gain a stone now and at the end of the next round, or I'm sorry, at the start of the next round, and then it would end. But for the most part, the ones that are gained per turn are in fact, I think they all are, as a matter of fact, are the extended agreements. So then you will take your actions. In order to take actions in this game, you can do a few different things. First of all, you can play cards in 3 different ways. The first way you can play the cards is playing the card and just gaining the top attribute over here in the non-bonus section, okay? So in the case of this card right here, if I played it, I would gain 2 of these, let's see, they are called culture attributes. However, if I wanted to gain the bottom section, the bonus section, or the boosted section, pardon me, then I would have to pay, in this case, 1 resource matching the blue, which would be water. I'd have to pay that from my supply, or gold, which could be used as mild, to take the boosted action. The other thing I can do on my turn is I can play this card face down in order to gain 1 resource matching this right here, which would be a water, or I could play it and not take the action and queue up a movement card. The movement card would be based on the capacity that I have here. In the case here, it's 3. And I would put this out here just like this. And then as I move around the board, I would check this down, rotating it 1 space per movement. Any movement not used at the end of your turn is lost. But you could do multiple cards that way if you want, up to 4 of them, because you have 4 of those movement tokens. So that is what the cards do here. The other thing you might end up with is you might end up with cards in your hand that are loans or strife. In the case of these, you can pay them back by paying 3 gold to return it, or you can just discard it when you draw it. It just clogs your hand. Same thing right here, the strife, spend 4 of your culture to return this card, or you can discard it. But if you have those at the end of the game in your hand, they'll be worth minus points. All right. You cannot use those cards to take a movement action or to gain attributes. Now, let me go ahead and focus in on some of the other things so we can talk a little bit more in detail. So, first of all, let's take a look at the market, because the market is how you're going to get new attributes, and it's how you're going to get better attribute cards and also development cards. So the market, let's put it right here. The market has a couple things going on. All right, this is not part of the market. First of all, you can see each of these slots right here, and each of the slots has a gold cost. So if I wanted to buy this card, it would cost me 4 gold, 3 gold, and 2 gold. Same thing over here, 3, 2, and 1. These are the developments. These are the advanced capability cards, okay? Or attribute cards, pardon me. If I wanted to buy them in my turn, I simply have to spend the gold for my resource, even though it's not a resource, the tracks, and take the card, and I can either put the card in my hand, put it in a discard pile to get it later, or I can put it out as an active project. And if I do that, I'm talking about these developments now, I can anytime bring it back to my, I can't bring it back to my hand, but I can at any time build it. I can also anytime build it from the active project spot or my hand, as long as I can pay the cost. The cost will be located in the upper left-hand corner, and it will be this number of these types of attributes. So in this case, it would cost me 5 of the trade attributes, and then I could play the card. And I have to play it on the board, on a territory that has no enemies on it, and also is adjacent to my capital or adjacent to an existing board development that I've already built. When I play it down, I will immediately get the 3 victory points. And if there is something like this, I will have to do this right away with the lightning bolt. From there on in, when I move to the card, I can place one of these influence tokens on it and leave it on there. And if I do, for instance, this one, as long as I have an influence token face up, I can use this capability. In this case, it's a 1 per turn capability. I could also spend this influence at any time with my leader not necessarily having to be there, but when the leader is there, that's the only way to put the influence token on the card. I could spend it to take the production from this area, and I could get the 2 iron in this case, or metal, or whatever you want to say. And so you will have a certain number of those influence tokens based on the wisdom that you have on your attribute, your leader attribute card. So that is how these bottom cards work. The top cards work by basically you purchase them for the gold cost, and then you put them on the top of your draw deck. So you will guarantee yourself to get it next turn, most likely. You can also cycle the market by paying trade resources, as you see here, to to remove a card and put it on the bottom of its corresponding deck and leave that space open. Just like when you buy a card, you're going to leave the space open. The spaces do not replenish, and when they replenish, they all slide down, and then you move in from the outside until the end of your turn during the cleanup phase. Okay, now let's talk about a couple other things here since we've talked about the market. Let's look at these cards. So what is going on in the cards? So these kind of cards are the trade agreements. And in order to enact a trade agreement, unless you're Augustus like me, you have to have a leader in that place, and then you have to spend the corresponding technology based on whether you want to do an immediate agreement or a quick one or a longer term one. And like I said, the immediate ones, it says gain a stone now and the start of the next round. And then you're going to flip this over, and it's going to look like that when the agreement is over with. And these longer term ones, these will they will go for the entire round, and you will gain a resource, in this case, 1 stone per turn. And then in the next round, at the end of the next round, it will expire. So you get it for basically almost 2 rounds. When they expire, they leave the trade token on the card. You can get the trade token back if you develop over the card, but otherwise you cannot get it back. You can't use the card again, and it will stay there, taking up one of the rest of your tokens, or your trade tokens for the rest of the game. There are other things on the board, like these enemies. So the enemies have a couple of different things on them. First of all, they're hidden, but when you move next to them, you will be able to reveal the enemy. And it has a couple of things on the actual token itself. The value on the left is how many military might you need to play as far as attribute cards are concerned in order to defeat the enemy. The term on the right is how many you have to exceed that left value by if you don't want to take a strife card. If you do not pay, in this case, a total of 9, you'd have to take 2 strife cards if you were to defeat him by just 7. Then on the lower left, you get that many glory points, and then you get that many gold in the lower right. You cannot interact with a card that has an enemy on it in any way besides attacking it. So I couldn't develop over it. I couldn't be sitting there and get this bottom action. I couldn't do a trade action if it was a trade card and there was an enemy on it. So you have to get rid of the enemy first. Now, if you decide to, I'm just going to show you some other things here. If, let's say this guy is gone, and you are resting on this action at the end of this territory at the end of the round, you will get to do whatever it says. This little foot with the underlining icon right there basically means if you're present at the end of the round in the cleanup phase, not the end of the round, pardon me, the end of the turn in the cleanup phase, you get to take that action. There are other actions over here like this where this is what happens when you build over, when you develop it. So if you develop over this card, you would gain 2 of the food resources. So that really covers the cards out here. Remember, if you want to place an influence on a card, your leader has to be there. And then the leader, this influence, if you want to use one of the card's actions, that will be the one that has the asterisk on it. You will spend that influence. It doesn't matter whether the leader's there or not at this point, and you will take the action. However, just this being present here allows the capability of many of these other actions, like in this case, commerce. And if you don't spend the action on your turn, it will remain from turn to turn until spent. You cannot actually remove it or transfer it unless you actually spend it. All right, so that takes care of the enemies, that takes care of the trading and making agreements, that takes care of the interaction with the market, and that's pretty much the whole thing with regards to the kinds of actions you can take. Now, at the end of your turn, if you don't feel like playing any more cards or don't have any more cards and don't have any more actions you want to take, you will then end your turn and you'll go into a cleanup phase. As soon as you go in the cleanup phase, if your leader is on any space that has this icon, you will go ahead and do that action if you want. Then you'll discard all the played cards from your hand in your discard pile. You'll replenish the market. So this is the time when you replenish the market, and only the time when you replenish the market. You'll have some, let's say I had this card here that was purchased earlier, or maybe even just cycled out by the cycle action. I'd have a hole in the market. It'd be quite simple. I just slide these down, and then I would draw a new one and replenish the market like that. All right. Then you draw up to your hand limit. So here's what happens. Your hand limit is dynamic based on your power level, in this case 6. But if you didn't have cards that were played, you could hold cards from turn to turn. It is not necessary that you play all your cards, and you don't discard your hand at the end of your turn either. So you can hold them. However, you can discard, like I said, your loan and your strife cards, and you could, even if you didn't want to use a card, play it for its attribute if you wanted to just play it face down to get the attribute. So you're never stuck with any cards in your hands. You can hold them for strategic reasons to try to build up a capability, for instance. After you've discarded, after you draw off your cards, if you find that your draw pile is now empty, okay, then you will end the round. If not, you will just proceed to the next turn. Now, the next turn will go, depending on the rounds, one at a time until you get to this spot right here, if it's round 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then that would be the end of the round. So you couldn't take any more turns, even if you had more things in your draw deck. So that is how you advance from round to round. If you get to the end of the round, then what you must do is you must shuffle your whole discard pile into a new deck of cards. You're going to advance the round marker cube once, and then you're going to completely wipe the market, and you're going to replace it with new cards. Now, if this ends up being round number 3, or you've already built 5 developments, you're going to shift from the level 1 developments to the level 2s. These don't shift. You just take them out and draw new ones. Finally, there are actions that allow you to trash strife or loan cards, meaning you don't have to pay them back, you just discard them out of the game. However, if you ever trash one of these, you also have to take an additional card out of the deck and trash it as well, basically making it so that it hastens the game. And so that keeps you from just trying to trash everything linearly, because you can only trash, well, up to 4 times, I guess. If you were to trash a 5th time, you would effectively end the deck and end your game. So that's about the size of it. If you accomplish all the edicts and you didn't end the game earlier from exhausting the strife or the loan cards, then you win. I hope this was helpful. Hopefully you understand a little better about what you're doing with this game now that we've explained it. Lots of cool stuff going on here, and I really was extremely impressed with this game, being that it came in such a small box and it was just really a whole bunch of cards. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, everybody. And whatever you do in the future, I really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy. One thing I didn't specifically say, which I should have, was when you advance the round marker here, you will return the turn cube to the star. So you basically get a whole fresh set of turns there. My mistake, should have called that out. Okay, thank you.